Hi, Bob Bartlett here with the Ubuntu Fly Anglers Network and iFishiBelong. And this is our podcast series on the reel, and I am your host. This conversation was recorded in 2024 on Instagram, but way too important to only live there. So we have moved this episode and others like it to our podcast. On this episode, I sit down with Minnesota fly fishing guide and hunting guide, Ashley White, aka the Gentleman Lumberjack. Ash is also founding member of the Ubuntu Fly Anglers Network. On this episode, he shares his evolution from being a corporate executive to the outdoor life that he loves so much. He also shares his struggle, his battle with PTSD, with mental illness, and the healing power of nature. So please enjoy this episode of On the Reel with Ashley White. Well, welcome to the show, Ash. It's a pleasure, man. It's good to see you. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
I assure you the pleasure is mine. And anytime I get to have a conversation about mental health or wellness, um, I believe my testimony helps reduce sort of why it's taboo. And so for anyone else who may be feeling the same or felt the same, for me to come on and be able to document it in front of an audience that I have no idea who's going to watch, I hope that it helps them be able to tell their story or seek help if needed.
That's amazing, bro. So how do you identify yourself? Where are you from? I said Midwest. Do you have more details to share about who you are, your identity, and where you're from?
Yeah. So I am from Ohio, born and raised there. Um, I'm an Ohio boy through and through. I love the Buckeyes. Graduated from Ohio State. First and foremost, I'm a husband and then a father. We have four beautiful children and three dogs now. And so we are an active family, a very busy family. But those are, I'm probably a fly angler fifth on the list, even though that's how now currently I make my money. In the priorities of who is Ashley White, who is the gentleman lumberjack. It's always going to be husband, father, steward of the environment, followed by fly angler or adventurer, or any of the things that some people call me out there.
So tell me, what's the background of the Gentleman Lumberjack?
The gentleman lumberjack is about um, the two personas of Ashley White. And so if you were a part of my life as a business acumen, I worked my way up into corporate America into the VP level. So you frequently see me in a suit and tie and speaking and shaking hands and doing all of the executive officer level stuff. That was the gentleman, right? That was always clean, always shaven, always so well put together with my talking points. You ask me a question, I would give you a PR answer that had probably been written for me in a space. And then there was the lumberjack, who was probably more of who I was, and the other persona probably was just sort of what the world told me I was supposed to be.
Mm.
And so the lumberjack is about the other persona of me, both true, but sort of different percentages of my life. Was the outdoor side of Ashley, the one who wanted to not shower for a week out in the boundary waters, the one who wanted to have a landscaping company and cut down trees all day, and move mulch and literally pick up poop. That hard work, that discipline, that sweat and equity in that space was more of who I was. And so there became a point where I was probably 80% gentleman, 20% lumberjack, and then I was probably 50-50. And now I've now switched to where I'm like 70% lumberjack, 30% gentleman. And they're both very much me,
Yeah.
but one feels more true to the core of who I am. And so I frequently talk to folks who, at one point it seemed like everybody just wanted to buy a van and, move out west and drive up and down the Pacific coast and whatever. And so I don't necessarily believe that everyone has to do that. There is a way to, be a weekend warrior, go to a park outside. All of that is very much real and was a part of sort of the lumberjack journey for me. Whereas now I make my living outdoors. And so, but it was a journey. It took 9 years, 9 years for me to leave corporate in order to do that. And so I just didn't quit and pull the plug. It was many conversations with my wife. It was talking to my children, other members of my family to get the lumberjack element to that 70%. But the gentleman is still there. The gentleman will go nowhere. But the percentage of how I show up adjust based on sort of the journeys of my life stage.
Wow. That's some deep stuff. I know you left corporate America some time ago to pursue being outdoors full time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was a decision that I would not change. But I also tell people that if the right position came open, I could go back to corporate. The role would have to be right, but it's not like completely off the board for me. It's still a part of who I am. I love business. I'm a business student. Like I have my MBA and all of the wonderful certificates that you get and all of that good stuff. However, I just didn't want it to sort of control like the being of
Mm.
who I am every day. That 9 to 5 grind and never being off. Once I got to a certain level in corporate
Right.
America, you could call me at any moment in the night, and I had to solve those problems. And that was my job, and I got compensated well for that. So there's no shade to that space. Um, but after sort of we had the conversation of hitting that mental wall and having sort of that mental breakdown, I realized that that particular space I needed to start adjust from that 80% gentleman. I needed to bring the lumberjack portion of my life up a little higher.
Sure. Well, that's a nice segue, Ash, into sharing whatever wherever you want to start, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
It's totally up to you
Oh
about
man.
your journey. You know,
Yeah.
so
So
whatever you're comfortable with.
if if you met me, I sort of pride myself as being relatively even. Like I don't get really excited about anything. I will be laughing and smiling so much on the inside. I see quite a few people, my wife on here, a couple of other friends that probably rarely see me hoot and holler when I catch a fish, or like if I'm not catching fish, it's about the same in my opinion. Maybe they see something different. So I'm generally a cool guy. So much so that during the birth of our third daughter, my wife um, pretty much uh, bled out, so to speak, on the table, and so her uterus ruptured, and she lost a lot of blood. I received a phone call from the doctors, or the chaplain actually was the one that called me and said, "Hey, Ashley, you need to come back to the hospital. Your wife is about to die." And so I drove back immediately to the hospital. And when I get there, the chaplain is the one who meets me at the door. So I immediately thought she was dead. They usher me back into the room. The doctor comes in, the chaplain is there, and they say, "Hey, your wife's not doing well. We want to talk to you about donating her organs." And I immediately say, "That's not a conversation we're going to have. I need you to focus on saving her life." Flat out, we're not having that conversation. Ultimately, they weren't able to um, um, make sure she did not like become deceased, and she was in a coma for a little while. Um, and in that time, while she was in a coma, we had a baby in the NICU. I had a wife in the SICU, and I never left the hospital. So I would wake up in the morning, and I would be with the baby, and then my dad would come. He'd sit with my wife, or we vice versa. We were constantly rotating. Um, and I'm still trying to like work remotely, like wrapping up things for folks. I'm still trying to get our eldest two children together, and somebody walk the dogs or get the grass cut. All the things that happen just normal day to day. I was on autopilot. I'm just grinding every day. Everything's taken care of. Never cried, right? Like Bob, I never cried in any of those spaces. Never really worked through it. So the fast forward, wife comes out of the hospital, kid comes out of the hospital, everybody's home, everybody's doing well. I'm back at work. I'm making my daily commute. I'm on the grind. And one day I just feel like I was having a heart attack. So I go to the bathroom, like, oh man, whew, that's rough. Call my wife. I say, I think I need to go to the hospital. I'm having chest pains. I need to go. I get to the hospital. They're like, hey, you're having an anxiety attack. And again, like I'm like, y'all don't know me. Like I'm Ash. I don't have anxiety attacks. I'm the coolest cat ever. Like I'm hard to rattle. Um, and so leave. A couple of days later, it happens again. Call my wife. Like I need to go to the hospital. This time it came with like hallucinations. And the easiest way to say it, like I felt as though people were going to hurt me or hurt my daughter. So go to the doctor, go to the hospital, and get admitted in. And they're asking me, they're like, "Hey, how long I like you serve? You're a veteran." I'm like, "No, I'm not a veteran. I don't. I'm fine." They're like, "Oh, well, we think you have post traumatic stress." And I'm like, "I've never had any level of trauma. I understand post traumatic stress in sort of a war scenario or combat scenario. I'm just Ash. Like I go to work, I take care of my family. Like it was never trauma, right?" And so as I go to sort of the counselor inside sort of like this 3-day hold in the hospital, they're asking me about my story, and they're like, "Oh, you're a business executive. Like, we're black privileged not to have financial problems, beautiful wife, beautiful kids. What's going on?" So I tell them the story. I'm like, "Yeah, my wife, she pretty much died in birth, and I had to sit there and make decisions and blood transfusions, and that's not working, and the kid is sick, and the kid is not doing well, and I'm sitting there making decisions, and trying to figure out how to get my daughter's hair done, and all of these little things." And they were like, "Oh, we think that's what it is that you were, in layman's terms, so is that you were on autopilot, and your body and brain is now dealing with the emotions that you had set aside." And it literally like just came out of nowhere. Um, and I don't want to say like my brain was broken, but for like the next 3 years, I had hallucinations of people trying to hurt my wife, drew like vivid images of something as strange as a dinosaur walking across my living room to people seriously like in public transportation wanting to hurt me. And I had to sort through that. And so eventually, of course, that's a strain on my family. It's a strain on my wife. My wife is like, "Hey, you really need to get some help. Like you can't work through this." My father is a preacher. I'm a preacher's kid. So I'm trying to pray. I'm trying to like talk to God about it. I'm trying to pray it away, and it wasn't working. And it's not that I like prayer doesn't work. I was just like, I needed something else. And so I ended up going to a counselor. I went through like 7 counselors. Like Bob, like people always be like, "Man, I love my counselor." I fired every one of them. My wife was not very happy with me. I would go in, they'd be like, "Ashley, you want to talk?" "No, I'm not coming back. I'm not talking to you," and we'll walk out. And it took my wife like coming in to sit with me, like, "You're not leaving."
This time you stay.
Yeah, I will fire a mechanic, a doctor if I don't like you. Like I'm like, "Nope, fired next." And so I fired, like 7 therapists, like without even giving them a shot. I was just opposed to it. I believe part of that's cultural as a black individual. Part of that is like probably my sex as a man. Like I felt like I could do it myself or that I was weak. Part of it was I held heavy on faith as a firm believer, and thought I could use those things to like work through it. And I was failing miserably, but I was wrecked. I was completely wrecked. And so we finally got this one therapist that I was like, I enjoyed talking to him. He was cool. He was a great guy. And my wife stopped coming so we can have, very, very honest conversations around it. But it took her sitting there with me to get that done. So listen to your wife if you have not figured that out already.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so to shorten the story for you, he wanted to medicate me, and I said no. And he's like, "All right, well, we got to do something." And so I was like, "I don't even want to be here. I hate the hospital, right? All the places that were supposed to help me, church, hospital, therapist, family, all of these, systems that literally are designed to support me, and nothing wrong with any of them. Nothing was working. I didn't like any of them. I couldn't work with it. I was just feeling crushed to the point that I had suicidal ideations. And so, like one day, I was on the phone with my teenage daughter, and the police were coming for me because I had put a gun to my head and told my wife I was about to kill myself. So I was calling my daughter to say goodbye. Um, and the police like rushed me, and they came. I don't even know where they came from. They rushed me, and I had to go into sort of a psych ward for protection. And that's when the therapist was really like, "Okay, if you're not going to take medicine, if you're not going to do all these things, and you can't seem to do it." And I was trying to express to them like, I don't even want to die. I just can't figure out how to live. And so when I hear folks in these spaces or having these feelings frequently as I'm sitting around these tables and coloring, and I'm talking to the patients that are in there with me, we want to live, right? We did not want to harm ourselves in most cases. We just couldn't figure out how to make it stop, or how to function, or how to wake up in a day and not feel as though the world was so heavy that we couldn't move forward. And so as I'm expressing that, the therapist is like, I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like this is crazy. Like I can't brush my teeth. Somebody's always with me. Like I'm good. I gotta go. So he's like, all right, let's start to talk. How about we meet at a park? So we started meeting outside, and I started feeling better. I started opening up more, and we started actually making progress. He's like, all right, next time let's just go for a walk. And I'm not talking about like we were at Yellowstone or Yosemite. Like we're at a neighborhood park, like with the playground and like traffic and all that. This is just regular. And after 3 minutes sitting in the space, I'm relieved. I'm relaxed. I can talk. 30 minutes into the space, like my blood pressure is already down, and I feel safe, right? But this is a dude I really didn't even know. You know what I mean? That turned into walks. That turned into other meetings with my therapist that were in like a less traditional space, where he helped me understand like the practice of mindfulness and where I am and calming down. And for me, that place turned out to be the outdoors. And so I found that when I was outside, this institutions that were supposed to help me, whether it be my family, God, the hospital, everything slowed down enough for me to hear them, right? And so I talk a lot about like outside is my church. I'm a preacher's kid. I don't even go see my daddy preach. There's nothing against my daddy or his church or like all of my faith bringing up. But when I'm outside, that's when I feel closest to God. I feel the closest to my creator. And so that's when I feel like my prayers feeling heard, or feeling like I can speak. And I don't like hear God, but as not to get too spiritual or religious, but I started to think about a lot of the parables in the Bibles that I was taught. And when they were hearing from God, like they were out in the wilderness. Like that's where they were. They were out by themselves in the space, meditating or praying or whatever it was, right? And so I started thinking that maybe this was best into that space to help me, knowing that I needed that direction. My wife started noticing a difference, found fly fishing through a whole bunch of different stories, but fly fishing really was the key to unlock it, because there is nothing like standing in a river or sitting in a drift boat, and that particular space or time allows the world to just really focus on that one thing, that one cast, and everything slows down enough for you to actually hear yourself think or sort your emotions. Whereas like when I'm at home, I got four kids, three dogs, my wife hitting me, the emails is going off. I'm trying to make some content, I'm trying to figure out all this stuff. It's just like the world is going crazy, and then people being CNN's on or talking about all the things, right? But when I'm out there, I don't have no service. I don't have no nothing. It's just me and my church, so to speak, right? Whether I'm with you or anybody else, like this is my chapel, or my whatever you want it to be. This is my faith house. When I feel the closest to my creator in the space that I feel like I am born to be in. And for people, that's all different, but that's how I try to help people understand like why I'm so frequently out there, why it's important for me to be out there. It's just not about the fish. Like I'm actually not even interested mostly in the fish. I'm in the connection to the people I'm with, the environment around me, and then like I feel a stronger connection to God when I'm there. And so that's when the healing properties of nature, it did for me what all the other institutions were supposed to do, but I needed something else. Like it wasn't working. Like I called my daddy and he trying to preach to me, and I'm like, I ain't trying to hear that. Like I don't even, it ain't working. I go sit in my drift boat, and I'm like, yeah, I hear it. I'm feeling it. The sound of the river, like that's where I sort. That's where I heal. That's where, I build friendships. That's where I build relationships. That's where, I think about how to help nature, how to be a better citizen of this world. Um, all of those things. And so that if it wasn't for nature, like I don't know that we would be talking right now. Like I had gotten to the point where I couldn't figure out how to make it another day. And nature, you hear it a lot, but nature really saved my life. It saved my marriage. It kept my kids having a father. Like it helped me be a better businessman even post this particular space, because I was flaming out at corporate. I was flaming out. Um, and this sort of saved my career as well. And so those are all the things. Yeah, that's the long story short, short story long. Either way, that's how I
That's
got to this
yeah.
space of preaching to folks around the restorative properties. And I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but this was 10, 15 years ago. And so none of the research that we see now, like so readily available, was accessible. Now it's like, yeah, if you go for a walk, 3 minutes, like your blood pressure goes down, or like, like these are things that like people are trying to instill in us, even in our work environment. Say like, no, take a break, go for a walk. Like you're gonna come back refreshed. You're gonna go back. Your mind's gonna be clear. Well, the thing for me, 15 years ago, we didn't talk about that. I didn't talk about this as another black man. I didn't sit with one of my black elders and be like, hey man, I was trying to kill, I was about to kill myself, like flat out. I would never admit that openly into a space, or that like my mental struggles almost ruined my marriage. Like I would never say that out loud. But I know that there are other individuals who may be dealing with struggling this, whether they're a combat veteran, or their wife died, or they got into a car accident. Like I learned so much more about trauma inside of the brain, and like what it can do to give you sort of like that post-traumatic stress. Um, in my case, post-traumatic stress, and how that sort of like the switch flipped is the easiest way for me to explain it. And everything was just completely different. Nothing tastes the same. Nothing smelled the same. I didn't trust people the same. And it took me going into those dark spaces and coming out in nature for me to start to heal and solve some of those things, to the point where managing mental health for me is still a thing, right? It didn't just go away, but I manage it much differently, and the outdoors is a big part of that.
So if you were to share a takeaway really of this whole experience for you, um, for other folks, you know, are in a similar state maybe, um, what would it be in your words? If you had just one thing from your experience.
Hey, um, a couple of things. Those institutions that I mentioned, whether it's family, church, medical, all those things, they are there to help you to the best of your ability. Allow them to.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, whatever your path to walk mine happen to be in nature, there are other outlets or venues that are not vices that will kill you. Like normally people go to drinking or drugs or all of those things. Like it's the same thing. Just I'm just addicted to nature. Like
Yeah.
that's what I found makes me feel as though I can sort and work through, and sort of helps me go through those things. And so there are positive elements in this world that I encourage you to seek out to help you navigate that, along with those other institutions. Like if you need medication, get medication. That's all right. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like the way it felt. But I had to listen to my wife. I listened to my doctors. I had to like find the things. And if you never get started, if you feel like the world is so heavy, it becomes such a downward spiral. And so every journey is different. This is just me speaking at what I experienced and how I overcame it. But I had to find the key to unlock those institutions for me, right? I had to find the key to unlock God again for me, because I had stopped believing. I was like, God don't care about me. I want to die. Like if God cared about me, I wouldn't feel this way. I wouldn't be going through this. And so nature re-unlocked like the connection to my faith, which unlocked the connection to my father, right? Nature unlocked the key to me, which unlocked again the connection to my wife, the connection to my kids, right? Nature unlocked the key to like understanding like why my medical team was so important to me. And so if you don't have the resources, hit me up, or I can send them and we can post them in this or whatever. But there are tons of resources for folks. There are tons of resources, particularly because we're talking about Black folks and brown folks specifically for you. But there are tons of resources all around. And so whatever that journey may be, you got to start that walk. It took me a long time to humble myself to believe in that I even needed the journey, let alone start the walk. And so those institutions and those places that I'm talking about are there to help you, but sometimes it feels like they can't. And in fact, what I needed was just the key to unlock some things that I could actually wrap my mind around how to help, how they could help me, or the things that I needed to get. And the nature happened to be that for me. And it's not like you see me, oh, I just got back from Bolivia and I was fishing for golden dorados. Like that, it started at a little park in a neighborhood, just regular park. Like I can't simplify it anymore. There's a slide and a swing set, and kids are playing. And that's where I started. 3 minutes into that space, I felt better. 30 minutes in that space, I felt safe. And I hadn't felt safe for years. I literally kept a gun on me all the time. As my wife, I stayed strapped all the time, to the point that my kid, one time we were at McDonald's, and I tell this story for transparency. We were at McDonald's. I always kept my gun like in the side of my door so I could pull it out just in case. And a man walked in front of me and he yelled at me because I almost hit him. And my daughter was like, "Shoot him, daddy." Like, that's how close the gun always stayed from me, that my, at the time, 6-year-old, I don't know how old she was. She was young though. But she was like, I know my father always carries his gun and he's ready to shoot. And that's was a moment again for me where I was even talking to my wife, like, that's not the first reaction that my child should have, in the case that I'm in an altercation. But I was so nervous, I was so wrecked, that I always kept my gun with me, always. And I'm still, I still have my licensure to carry. I very rarely even carry a firearm, but I do have guns and I do shoot, for hunting and things like that. But now I rarely carry a gun, and ultimately feel much safer in spaces where I believe that I am safe. Whereas before, I could go to the library and think the librarian was going to like just come get me for any reason. I have no idea, and I was just ready to harm them.
Yeah.
And so it was just the part that I had to go deal with. And so there was a point where all my guns went away, like they were gone. My wife took them, because I was a danger to myself mostly, not other people, but I was definitely a danger to myself.
Let me ask you real quick.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed on one of your guide trips, one of your experiences with clients, anything similar in their behavior in a boat, on a river?
Yeah. I've had people book me because they heard me on a podcast
Uh-huh.
tell this story, right? And it may
Yeah.
not, like, sometimes I'm not as real as this, or I might be just
Right.
talking about high level
Right.
stuff. But I've had people book me because they heard me speak,
Yeah.
or they heard me at a conference, or they've seen me out. I've had, when we're in the water for 8 hours and it's just us, like, your guide almost becomes like a therapist. Like, it becomes, people tell me things. I'm like, man, we
Sure.
got real close real fast. And so
Yeah.
frequently, I hear stories about this. Frequently, we have veterans in the boat. Frequently, they open up and it's like, "Hey, this is really peaceful." Like, somebody recommended that I come there. There's Project Healing Waters, for example, that's really popular, and this is a part of the conversation. Like, veteran suicide, is a high segment, based on the population size, that's affected. And so these are conversations that I use my corporate job to go and have, and would invite them out to my boat or to fish with me, regardless in what city I was visiting in the space. And so there's a lot of work, sexual assault survivors as well. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
fortunate to have this intersection of this corporate job that I held to work with, groups of people who may have trauma. So assault survivors, women who, were trafficked, or other things that happen to them. I work with them and then have them put on waders and fish for trout, and they're just like, "This is the most peaceful thing I've ever done." Um, and so there's a couple of communities that I'm able to channel into this space, and then there are a couple of communities who may seek me out, or it just may be a client, and we got 8 hours on the water together, and we run out of stuff to talk about, and they have a beautiful moment, and they say something that just sort of like a light bulb comes on for me, and the conversation sort of shifts. So yes, it's not just me, but I don't necessarily seek out
Sure.
that particular work in the guiding world, but it frequently will find me because of the 8 hours with no distractions together. We have very intimate conversations, and naturally, if you have stood in a body of water and just listened to the birds and the water running and all those things, you generally are like, wow, it's something different here. Or just walked on a path, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I want more of this. And so it generally comes out inside of a trip.
Well, Ash, I don't know if you, sorry for my interruption back here, but I have a fish clock behind me. And I just caught what did I catch? A bass or something. That was the fish
Cheers.
splashing and the reel screaming. Um, Listen, bro, I appreciate you. you were one of the first people when I started talking about Ubuntu. You're one of the first that I reached out to,
Hmm.
and I knew from that very first conversation that I want this relationship that we have to be real and lasting. Um, we're going to miss you here. In a couple of weeks. But I know you got to make your money. You got to be out there chasing birds or whatever you're going to be chasing in upstate Minnesota. So, but I appreciate your transparency. I know it was a scary, frightful place to be, but you survived, and I appreciate your survival. Um, and everything that you've gone through, and the fact that you share it so willingly and openly is impressive. And so I wish you the absolute best. And someday I want to get in that boat with you, or you need to get me in the driftless and hang out for a while,
Yeah,
chasing
definitely,
race,
definitely.
chasing browns. I keep seeing your buddy Scott holding these big bass.
Man,
You
he
know,
is Scott, Scott and Joe together, or just Joe. Like those. They've been out here slaying. I keep looking. I'm like, man, like I just want to. I want to go. I want to go. But anytime they're out there, they put on a little clinic. So,
yeah,
they are. If you, for those folks who don't know, if you come to Minnesota, they're quite. We have some great fisheries here, some great
you do.
anglers here as well. And we love to put people on fish. And so if you don't know any, let me know. I'll make sure I forward you their information. Scott and Joe, I think I see Jono and Scott on, but like they are in there. Hit them up. They some fishy brothers. So they're two of the coolest brothers you ever want to fish with.
Well, actually, Scott and I are going to be in a boat together here in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to be hopefully introducing him to some of our local species right here. Well, unfortunately, Ash, I'd sit with you longer, but our time is up, and like I said before, um, I love you, man,
Love you
and I
too.
love all that you do, and the way you're doing it. It's absolutely awesome. So again, as I said before, thanks for your survival, bro. So thank you for listening, everyone. You can also watch each episode on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram at Ubuntu Fly Anglers on Instagram and UbuntuFlyAnglers.com on Facebook. You can also message me directly at UbuntuFlyAnglers@gmail.com. So thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. See you next time. Tight lines.